before we get started, it's really important to me that everyone knows that I almost canceled this tonight. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really feeling good about anything. But I had a conversation with my wife this afternoon, and we decided that it was probably a really good idea to give everyone who is interested in taking a break from thinking about tragedy and horror and the pain we're all feeling, the opportunity to do that for an hour. So a big part of my heart and my soul and my thoughts are with all of the people in Connecticut. But we're doing this tonight, and we're going to talk about games because we love games. Gaming's awesome, and it's a terrific family activity. So let's get started. Okay. Our first question comes from Twitter. This is from James. James asks, do you think there's a shift back into tabletop gaming and people are getting tired of video games? It's an interesting question. I know that given an opportunity to play a video game or a tabletop game, I prefer to play a tabletop game. I like the interaction of being around a table with my friends, and I know other people feel the same way. I also know that sometimes it's just not realistic for people to get together with a group, and in that case, being able to play multiplayer video games is really fun for them. I don't play a lot of multiplayer video games anyway. I think because I'm 40, my first exposure to video games was the Atari 2600, and the experience of like playing with a person who's not sitting right next to me is very weird to me, and it makes me feel very uncomfortable. But what I think we're going to see even more of in the future, and we're already seeing it now, are tablet and gaming console versions, implementations of popular tabletop board games. The Small World app is already fantastic, so is the Elder Sign app and Ticket to Ride. And I know that there are some very, very awesome games, like some of the greatest games that we all love to play, being seriously considered for inclusion in portable video game format. My ultimate dream, and then I'll get to the next question, my ultimate dream is for the classic Steve Jackson game, Car Wars, which was one of my favorites as a kid, to become a tablet game, like you can play it on your Nexus or on your iPad or whatever. And the idea is that it would look like little pieces of cardboard, just like it did in the old days. And then you would like click and move around, right? Like where you're putting your car and everything. And then the computer would just handle if you have any difficulty points left to spend, and if you succeeded, something like that. So it's a very long way of saying, James, that I don't think that there's a shift back into tabletop games, but I do think that maybe because of the existence of our show, people who maybe didn't go to game shops already are starting to go and are starting to meet people who, like me, given the opportunity to play a video game or play a board game, choose to play a board game. I'm also completely addicted to Minecraft. But that's another thing. All right, our next question comes from Twitter, from MJ. Is there any chance Tabletop might do a session of Pathfinder or D&D? We played in the beginning of the second half of our season, which starts January 3rd. January 3rd is when new episodes of Tabletop return to Geek and Sundry on YouTube. We actually play Dragon Age RPG from Green Ronin Publishing. It's me, Sam Witwer, Chris Hardwick, and Kevin Sussman as a party of adventurers playing with Chris Pramus, who wrote the setting and is like the publisher of the game. It's very, very fun. It's a great system that I really love. And we learned an awful lot when we were doing that. RPGs take a very long time to play well. One-shots don't really let you invest in your character the way that ongoing campaign does, which I think kind of removes part of what makes RPGs so meaningful for all of us. But I'm very interested to hear what the audience feedback on it is, and assuming that we have a second season, that audience feedback will actually play very heavily into my decision to do more RPGs, maybe do RPG episodes that are an hour long, or if there's enough demand, we might even do sort of like a tabletop spin-off that's just RPGs, specifically to Pathfinder. I have a lot of friends who work on Pathfinder. I have a lot of friends at Paizo, and I'm not crazy about Pathfinder. I find the rules unbelievably unnecessarily complex, and spending 6 hours resolving a grapple and an attack of opportunity is really not how I enjoy role playing. I prefer indie RPGs. Our next question is from Twitter. Is that map board you guys used when you played Munchkin available anywhere online? No, that's actually part of the Munchkin Deluxe set, which you can order from your friendly local game shop, or if you don't have a friendly local game shop, I'm pretty sure it's in Target. But if you go to sceneontabletop.tumblr.com, that's sceneontabletop.tumblr.com, you will see all these pictures that people have sent me of their game nights, and I just put them on that Tumblr and share them with the world. And one of the things people send me a lot of are their customized Munchkin level counter boards. Some people just draw them. It's a really great thing. They sit down with their kids, and their kids draw out these Munchkin boards that will let them count 10 levels. Some people have made them using Lego. I've seen Star Munchkin that have a space theme. I've seen Fantasy Munchkin that has a fantasy theme. You get the idea. And I also saw someone who built a counter on the inside of their lid of their box for Munchkin. So if you already own Munchkin, you don't want to buy a new version of it, just make your own. And when you do, send us a picture of it. You can submit it if you have a Tumblr account. You can submit it to sceneontabletop.tumblr.com, or you can email it if you don't have a Tumblr account to tabletop@rollweek.net, or just share it with Geek and Sundry. All right, our next question comes from YouTube, from James. Are those all games in the chair behind me? Yes, they are. Earlier today, my wife said, "Why did you stack up all those games on the couch in your office?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm dressing the set for my hangout tonight." So we don't know if we have a second season of Tabletop. We're all hopeful that we do, but there's no guarantee yet. But we have to kind of proceed as if there's going to be. So my co-producer Boyne and I have been playing tons of games. A lot of the games behind me are games that we've played. There's a whole giant stack of games over in that side of my office that I'm not going to show you because it's a mess. And we've been trying out games to see, all right, if we get a second season, what's going to work, what isn't going to work. I've been exposed to some really fantastic games that I hadn't played before. Formula Day is an insanely fun race car dice game, which is weird because I don't really like dice games. King of Tokyo is a really fun dice game, also because I don't like dice games. Smash Up is maybe one of my favorite deck building sci-fi genre mashing fighting games. And what else did I play? Oh my god, Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep is a phenomenal game. These are all things that I'm very hopeful we'll be able to play on Tabletop if we get a season 2. Now, someone is going to say, "Hey, what can we do to help you get a season 2? Thank you, person I've just invented, for asking that question. What you can do, seriously, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, comment on our videos, and watch the videos, and tell people. It's weird, like, so we live in this kind of new media world where we don't have to play by the same rules as the networks play by, but ultimately, the people that give us the money that it costs to produce our show care about viewer interaction, page views, and likes and things like that. And we know, and this is factored in, that there might be 5 of you sitting around watching Tabletop, and that's only going to count as one view. So maybe when you go home at your own house, just go find the video that you watched with your friends and thumbs up it. Is that a word? I've made it a word. Thumbs upping is now a word. Those of you who listen to my podcast, this is the bell. Okay. So this is from Twitter. Stephen Henry, what would be a good game to get my little one into tabletop gaming? I don't know how old your little one is. It depends kind of on their age. Very small children, like 4, 5, 6-year-olds, have played Ticket to Ride, And instead of trying to build routes and things like that, they've just collected cards to, like, they play without the tickets, basically. So they just make trains with their parents, and they have a really great time doing it. Depending on the age and sort of like cognition of your kid, Catan Junior is a really terrific introduction to Settlers of Catan. And if you can find it, it's very hard, it's out of print. The Mad Magazine game is a really great, ridiculous, silly game from when I was a kid that was actually part of my introduction to gaming. Wizards of the Coast recently re-released Dungeon, which was a game that I loved in the 80s. Because, like, if I couldn't get together with people to play Dungeons and Dragons, I could play that game kind of by myself and just sort of like imagine, right, that I was actually playing Dungeons and Dragons. I played it. It doesn't really hold up for me the way that it did when I was younger, but for younger kids, I think that it might be a lot of fun. When my kids were little, I introduced them to gaming with a game called Gold Diggers from Out of the Box Games. Let me just open up a thing here to see Gold Dig. Not Kanye West. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Gold Diggers. I don't know. You know what? There's a whole bunch of maybe it's called Closure. Isn't this great television, you guys? Yeah, no. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, it was this really fun out of the box game where you would like claim mines and stuff. It was very simple. It was very easy for them to understand. Wonderful, wonderful John Kovalic artwork. And speaking of John Kovalic artwork, of course, Apples to Apples Junior, another really great game for kids. Ultimately, what matters is not what you're playing, but that you are playing. And there's a terrific book that I contributed to called Family Games, the 100 Best, or Hobby Games. I've contributed to two of them, Hobby Games, the 100 Best. And they are what we think of when we think of tabletop games. And they're broken down by like sort of category and things that you can play with your kids. So I hope that is helpful. That's useful for you. I've lost my place in the question queue. Here we are from Twitter, Sean C. In my local game shop, the tabletop gamers are 30 plus in age. Do you feel that is the norm or something else? That's pretty normal. A lot of the people that go to game shops for their game nights to play are people from all ages go, but I see people there that are my age all the time because it's very normal for us, right? Because we grew up. So you can just go to like a Target or you can go to Amazon or a toy store and get one of these tabletop games that we play on the show pretty easily. I actually recommend that you go to a game shop because the owner of that game shop basically exists to help people like us find other games to play. So he sees you buying Carcassonne and says, if you haven't played Alhambra, you might like that. Alhambra, by the way, is our premiere episode when we return. And a lot of people are asking when Dodger Lee's going to be on the show. That's the one that she's going to be on, along with my friend Shane Nickerson. So we had to go to game shops, and it just became normal and very comfortable for us. I don't know if you're younger than that or older than that. I understand. I know if you're younger, it might feel weird, like you're hanging out with your parents. But gamers, in my experience, tend to be very welcoming. And if you walk in and just go, "I'm looking for a group," someone will pull you into a game. You're always going to find those power gamer douchebags that make gaming kind of like super competitive and not fun. But they are vastly outnumbered, especially because people watch tabletop now, by people who just want to play a game and really have a good time with it. From Twitter, Phil Downey, not a question, but I just wanted to thank you for introducing me to so many good games, especially Small World. Well, thank you and you're welcome. From Twitter, Dave Wright, have you played the board game version of Civilization? I have not, but I can tell you, if you love Civilization as much as I do and you have an iPad, Civilization Revolution distills the experience of Civilization into about a cross-country flight's worth of time and is really a whole lot of fun. There's a style of game that I really like that unfortunately doesn't work for tabletop. We call them 4X, and it's Explore, Expand, and two other X's that I can never remember. And those are games like Twilight Imperium down tiles and explore. Generally, they're galaxy based, right? You like explore the galaxy, or get into like resource management and things like that, and they're really really fun. The problem is they take, because they're epic games, like 3 to 5 hours to play, and we just don't have time to do something like that on our show. But I have this idea to maybe do sort of like extra things in a presumed second season. So like we do these intros for the gag reels, right? Well, what if I, in addition to that, I would also show you a game and kind of review it. Like, this is a game that I love, like Ascension. This is a great game. I love it, but it's not going to be fun to watch us play it because a lot of what makes this game great is the strategizing that goes on in your head. There's a game called Agricola that I'm just bananas about, or Puerto Rico, and they're games that are deep, deep, deep strategy games. So basically, you would see, this is what you would see. For an hour, not very fun. But there's still games that I think people would enjoy playing, so I might do a thing where we like introduce people to those games in maybe in our off weeks, or maybe just as sort of like an extra kind of thing. I've lost my place again. Here we go. This is from YouTube. Elite 7x3. Can you one day play Arkham Horror? Same problem. Absolutely love Arkham Horror. It's so much fun to play that game and lose. I view Arkham Horror as a structured role-playing game. So for the people who are watching who don't know what that is, Arkham Horror is set in the Lovecraft universe. It's the exact same universe as the game Elder Signs that we played earlier this season on Tabletop. You're all pulp Lovecraftian adventurers moving around an enormous, just beautifully illustrated game board while you try to close gates and prevent one of the ancient gods from like coming in to the world and killing everybody and making their day really lousy. And you have to play it as a structured RPG, so if your characters will do some things better than others, and they're going to start going insane like they do in Lovecraft. So if you play it that way, where the board is kind of your GM and you are the players in this game, it's really fun. But it's like a 4-hour game, and it's huge. Like, there's just so much going on there. And I think it plays best with like 5 players. And it unfortunately wouldn't work on our show. But I love the Arkham universe so much. I put Elder Sign on the show earlier this season. This is from YouTube, from Othenral. As someone who's been in the tabletop gaming industry for some time, what kind of advice could you pass along to anyone interested in taking an idea for a new game and producing it interdependently, which I think is supposed to be independently? I don't know. That's actually a really great question for our producer Boyan, who does work in the games industry and is a huge part of the reason Tabletop is such a successful show. He is when Felicia and I designed the show, I called him and said, "We're doing this show. Do you want to be part of it? I'd love for you to help us reach out to the industry, get games." And he has such a great relationship with so many people in the industry, and is also an expert in gaming, that he was able to get on the phone with the president of Mayfair and get support, so we could play Catan, and was able to get on the phone with Fantasy Flight and these companies and get them to be supportive of us. He also has so much knowledge of gaming that he's been able to help our players come in and feel a little bit more like on solid ground. You know, it can be intimidating. I'm a gamer. I'm an experienced gamer, and I feel intimidated when I sit down and play one of those games. It reminds me of when I started playing poker on TV. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want to make a bad choice. You want to have fun. There's so much going on in your mind, and if you have just a little bit of coaching beforehand, it kind of gives you a foundation. Boyan did a really great job doing that. Boyan did an AMA on Reddit a couple of weeks ago, and if you went and searched there, and I think he did answer that question there. I'm really sorry that I can't give you a better, more useful answer. This is from Amy on Twitter. Are there any good single-player tabletop games? Is this a thing that has been done with any success? Most cooperative games can be played single-player. You just control all of the characters. This is considered a problem in cooperative games. There's a particular kind of gamer who really dislikes games like Pandemic that I love, because it's very easy for an alpha gamer to kind of take over and just direct everyone around and tell everyone what to do. good solid group that you're playing with, and kind of let people make their own decisions and contribute, right? Because you're a team and everyone contributes to the game in a different way. But any cooperative game can be played as a single player game. But I'm going to show you actually my favorite single player game in the world. Hang on, don't go. My friends Matt and Kelly Sue sent me this for my birthday. This is the complete run of Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 80s. And I know, right? And on this side, the complete run of Dungeons and Dragons Endless Quest books. When I was a kid, these books and the Lone Wolf books were my favorite single player games, because they existed in my imagination, and I got to be a hero, and I got to be awesome, and I got to make mistakes and go back and start over again, and they're really great fun. I actually have this idea to maybe read one of these in a hangout and let people who are watching the hangout make the decisions when the decision points come. I don't know if I can even legally do that, but I think it would be a lot of fun. So, short version of this answer: anything that is a cooperative game can be played as a single player game. Let's see. Where's our next question? Brian K. from Twitter: how does one with no local friends who play tabletop games meet others to play? Honestly, go to a game shop. It's a great place to meet people who love to play games, and because we want there to be more gamers, we tend to be, and when I say we, I mean gamers, we tend to be friendly and welcoming. A lot of game shops, Game Empire in Pasadena, which is my game shop, has a different themed night every night of the week for different kinds of games, and there are ongoing campaigns like in the Warhammer universe. They'll have tournaments in different collectible card games and things like that, and it's really, really fun. I spend an awful lot of time in the Los Angeles subreddit and in the gaming board game subreddit, and I bet if you join those communities, or wherever you're from, join the communities wherever you're from, and got to know people a little bit, and then just sort of threw up a flag and said, hey, I'm looking to play some games. Do you want to get a group together and do that? I bet you would find some people who would also want to do that. And I bet if you looked on Board Game Geek in their forums, there would probably be some people who can recommend. Another thing you can do is if you have friends that are not really into tabletop games, but maybe you talk about them a lot, and they know that it's like a thing that you love, maybe show them an episode of Tabletop. One of the reasons that I made this show was so that people who have partners or friends who are not gamers could sit down together, and you could watch this show. You could see people play one of these games, and then sort of get a sense of how fun it is, and show them that it's really not all that complicated. We play games that tend to be very close to entry-level games because we want people to get excited and go out and play other things. So maybe get your friends together, get 2 or 3 friends together, and sit down and watch an episode of Tabletop. Maybe show them Ticket to Ride, or Small World, or maybe Pandemic, and just let them see kind of how we do this. And maybe you can be that guy that brings new gamers into your group, because maybe there's people in your friends who are gamers and they just don't know it yet. Let's see, our next question. This is from Twitter. Dylan Coburn. Those getting old, folks. Can't really see that. Can't tell if that's an RN or just an M. No, because then it would be Cobum. Oh boy. Listen, Dylan, if your last name is Cobum and I've just made fun of your last name, I'm sorry. Sincerely signed, Will Beathins. Are you going to do any more Cthulhu-based games? Well, maybe. There are Munchkin Savage Worlds role-playing game system has an amazing Cthulhu setting published by these guys called Reality Wars. I don't know if we're going to use any of those on our show, but it's something that I would absolutely like to do. And our one of our mysterious geek and sundry folks just reminded me that I think it's Bicycle makes Cthulhu playing cards that are awesome, and they also make steampunk playing cards and zombie playing cards. Basically, if there's a genre that you want people to like, you're like, hey, let's have a party for this. They make cards, I guess, that do that. I feel like I just shilled for a company that isn't paying me. Now I feel dirty and horrible. I'm awful. You know what makes that feeling go away? Delicious homebrewed beer. This is from Twitter. Izzy Beers. Most games seem to target 3 to 4 players. Do you have any suggestions for 2-player games? Yeah, any collectible card game is great for 2 players. Magic the Gathering's really fun. Ascension, really not so much Dominion. Is it in this factory maybe? Lost Cities is another really fun one. All Creatures Big and Small is the 2-player version of Agricola. I like it so much that Boyne and I played several games of it, trying to figure out a way that we could make it work on tabletop, and we just couldn't make it happen. We couldn't make it go. I have not played it myself, but I understand that all of the Wizards of the Coast kind of miniature box games, like Legend of Drist or is there one back there? Well, Mansions of Madness is kind of like that. They're these. I'm just drawing a blank on the names of these games. I understand that they play very well with 2 players. You just control more than one person. If you're looking to play some games that are really fun 2-player games that we don't feature on our show, my wife and I still really enjoy playing Sorry from Milton Bradley. It really holds up, and it's really a whole lot of fun. And we really enjoy Rummy. Gin Rummy is a lot of fun. And Yahtzee, always a good fallback. Yahtzee, good 2-player games. This is from Twitter, Joshua McFarland. Is Dr. Hannah your most hated memory for this season? No, not at all. Dr. Hannah is a character that Felicia controlled in our episode, The Last Night on Earth, that we played with Garfunkel and Oates. And she just decided that she was going to role play this zombie character. Now, we would have won the game. We would have destroyed Kate and Ricky if we had that other zombie, but it was more important to Felicia for Dr. Hannah to sort of have a story and kind of wander around in his little hospital square on the board. And for dramatic effect, I got very angry about him. I mean, not angry, not real angry, whatever. I was, like Costanza rage, I guess, all about what Dr. Hannah was doing. Mostly because I just adore Felicia, and we're such good friends that we really, like, a large part of our friendship is just sort of based on giving each other crap and teasing each other about things. And giving her a hard time about Dr. Hannah was really, really a lot of fun for me. And, if Dr. Hannah didn't exist, there wouldn't be a Dr. Hannah Twitter account, and there wouldn't be a Dr. Hannah Tumblr. So, no, actually, Dr. Hannah is not a character that I hate. He's actually a character who I think is actually pretty cool. I'm actually grateful for Dr. Hannah. This is a question from Twitter. Jessica Lee, how was the idea for Tabletop started? Felicia called me, over a year ago, and said YouTube is doing grants, right? They're like putting money out for TV shows, and they want people to come in and pitch like a network lineup. Because this is what I'm going to do if you give me money. She was already successful because of the guild, and I knew that anything Felicia did would be successful because she is brilliant, and she surrounds herself with equally brilliant people like Sherry and Kim and everyone who works at Geek and Sundry now, who can like really make good decisions. And she said, "So do you want to do a show on the network?" And I said, "Absolutely, I do. What do you have in mind?" And we talked about a lot of things, and nothing really felt right to me. I didn't want to do like a vlog. I didn't want to do a daily show. I didn't want to do something where I was like, hey, here's a thing that geeks do. We're out being geeky in geek places because geeks, woo! But somehow the idea of gaming came up. And Felicia said, do you want to do a show where you review games, like board games and RPGs? And I said, I don't know, I think maybe it would be, yeah, that sounds, I think we're on to something there, but maybe we could, like, play the games. And then it was like, if you're ever digging up in Minecraft and you accidentally, like, dig in the water and the chamber that you're in just floods, that was what happened. It was like this thing got knocked loose in my brain, and I said, "Oh my God, Felicia, it's like Celebrity Poker but with board games, and it's like Dinner for Five, but not about the movie industry. Like this is, we'll get our friends who are YouTube performers or actors or musicians or creative people or writers, and we'll come in and we're going to do board games and RPGs." The original idea was to do 10 board game episodes and 10 RPG episodes, and I was going to do like 3 or 4 episode long arcs where we would play maybe some Masterminds or the Warhammer Fantasy role players, something like that. Ultimately, in the budgeting and the practical production realities, like that just couldn't happen. But these were things that we thought about, and what was really cool and really exciting was that when we started talking about what the show was going to be, it was like this great improv thing where I said, "What about this?" And Felicia goes, "Yes, and that." And I went, "Oh, yes, and then that." And pretty soon we had this terrific show, and we're really lucky. I'm really lucky. I'm very grateful. We have our director Jen is amazing. Our first AD and associate producer Adam is incredible. Our entire crew is just great, and our editors, you guys, I cannot praise enough our editors. Just Steve and Kim and Sue are amazing. There's so much that has to be conveyed visually to the people who watch this show. Like, if you don't play a game, then like how the tension that Kim put into Pandemic with the outbreak animations and music and stuff was so fantastic. Because that's the kind of tension that you feel in your head when that happens when you play the game. But it just doesn't translate if there's not something in, because it's a visual medium, to make that happen. So we were really, really lucky. Every single person that works on our show, our director Nate, who made those amazing little brains for Zombie Dice, just did such a good job kind of making it feel like a fun space. And then my friends Robert and Brenda at Geek Chic let us use that awesome emissary table. I guess what I'm saying is, I had an idea, Felicia made it better, we made it awesome together, and then we just got a lot of help from a lot of people. It's very much a team effort. And oh man, if we get a second season, I'm so excited because we know what we're doing this time around, and it could be even better than it was before. Okay, from Twitter, Rachel Farrat. Farrat? Farrat? Rachel, how should I pronounce your name? If it's Farrat, don't say anything. Very good. My daughter loves Flux and Forbidden Island. She's 9. What other game should we get? Okay, dude, you want to get a game called Catch a Falling Star. It's like pick-up sticks, but in reverse. You have all these little sticks, they're like star beams, and you are setting them up on like a little magnetic bar, kind of like Don't Break the Ice in reverse, like, or not, Kerplunk, and you're setting up all of these sticks and trying to just prevent them from falling down. The first person to get rid of all their sticks wins the game. It is so much fun, and that publisher makes, in fact, some of them are behind me. Magician's Kitchen is another one that's really fun, like super great for kids. And looking at the back of my head, I'm not going to finish that sentence. There's also a really fun dice game called Bears that's created by Justin DeWitt's wife, and I can't remember her name, but Justin DeWitt, Castle Panic, and gives great hugs, by the way. Justin DeWitt gives great hugs, and Bears is a really, really fun, quick dice game. If you want to expose your children to role-playing games and storytelling games, There's an amazing game called Happy Birthday Robot. It was a Kickstarter, and I believe now is available for sale, like in bookstores and game stores and things like that. And you roll dice so that you learn if you're going to say and, but, and or, and who's going to tell the story on either side of you. And you build a little story about like what happened for the robot on his birthday. It's so much fun. And like I said earlier, Catan Junior, and at 9, you could probably get 9-year-olds into some moderately more complicated games like Ticket to Ride, or any of the cooperative games would be really great too. There's one on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't remember what it is. Oh, this game Escape is really a lot of fun, and that would also probably be pretty fun for younger kids. Like I said before, it's like what you play is less important than the fact that you're playing. My gaming formed such an incredibly strong part of my bond with my kids, Ryan and Nolan, and it was such an important part of our family time together when we were younger. Just a little bit of background on my life for people who don't know. I met my wife Ann when I was 23 and she was 26. She had a 3 and a 5-year-old, and she was divorced, really. And I fell in love with all 3 of them, and we dated for about 18 months. And she told me right away, look, if you're not serious about like staying together, I've got kids here. That's an important thing, and I got that, and I knew it, and I don't know. I knew from the minute I first saw her that I was going to marry her, and we um, we had dated for I guess about 18 months, and then we moved in together, and her ex-husband was a nightmare, and it was really hard on all of us, and worked really hard to drive wedges between me and the kids. And I was very respectful of the reality that I'm the stepdad, and the kids have a relationship with their father that needs to be respected, and I get that. It's very important to me. And I never did that thing where I was like, hey, get out of the way, like, Dad, I'm going to be the dad. I was like, never like that. I didn't get the same respect in return, especially as it related to a lot of the normal things that fathers do with their sons, right? Like, he completely took over sports and just elbowed me out, and made it a really miserable thing for me, and in turn made it really miserable for the kids as well. But I knew that I had gaming. I knew that I had board games, and I had card games, and I had this thing that I could do with them that nobody else really could, because I've been playing games since I was 9 or 10 years old, and it was really wonderful. We would get together, the 4 of us, after dinner. We would sit down at our dining room table. We would not turn on the TV. We would sit down and we would play a board game, and or we would play a card game, and we played games of varying complexity. My son Ryan loves the Games Workshop game Talisman, and every time he comes home, he lives out of state. He's all grown up now. He has a job and a house and all that stuff. But when he comes home to visit, we always play Talisman, and it's wonderful. They're 23 and 21, my kids. But since Friday, in my head, they're 6 and 8 years old, and I can't get that out of my head. I can't stop thinking about like just what it would be like if I didn't have them in my life for one reason or another. And I look back on all those times that we played games together, and I ran D&D for Nolan and his friends, and I taught Nolan how to play Magic, and Ryan and I made D&D characters together, and I look back on these memories that I have that nobody can take away from me, that I'll have forever. And um, I've never once thought in my life, man, I wish I had played less games with my kids. And it was such a wonderful way for the 4 of us to bond, and the kids and me, and have a thing to do together. At a time in our lives, like, Ann and I have been married for 3 weeks, and there's a knock on the door early one morning, and oh, here you're served, because now you're going to spend the next 5 years of your life in absolute hell, because the ex-husband's going to just drag you to court trying to take the kids away over and over and over and over again, even after the court says, no, that's not going to happen, over and over and over again. But we needed normalcy. We needed like some calm in the eye of that terrible storm that was so painful for all of us. it's one of the reasons that I decided to go ahead and do this hangout tonight. Right, this is a chance to think about and talk about stuff that makes us happy and about things that we love. And getting together with my family for games, I've been doing it for 10 years, maybe even a little longer than that. So what you play doesn't matter. That you play does. Okay, sorry, that got a little long. Next question. This is from Twitter, from Matt. How many board games do you own? Like 100. Do role-playing books count? If role-playing books count, I easily have 100 role-playing books. I mean, you probably can't see because it's dark right there, but that entire bottom shelf in that bookcase is nothing but RPGs. And then I have a bookcase in my closet that is that same size. That's 4 shelves high. That's nothing but board games and RPGs. I also have a baker's rack in my closet that's completely covered with games. Well, and then you see what's on the couch behind you, and also in the garage. I mean, they're not exactly my games, but we have a lot of games in our tabletop library too at Game Center Secret Headquarters. So I have a lot of games. Since tabletop came out, when I go to cons, people are like, "Take my game and play it on tabletop," and I had to stop saying "okay" and then taking the game because I have so many that now we actually they all go to Sundry now, and we play test them. And that's just a weird thing. I never thought in my life that I would be like, "Oh, honey, I gotta go play games for work." It's kind of awesome. That gets a bell ring. Come on, of course it is. This is from YouTube. Robbie Rob. Have you ever entertained the idea of creating your own board game? Would you ever collaborate or play someone's new game? I have a lot of friends that work in the game industry, and I have helped play test games for years. I don't do it for a lot of people, and I don't do it for people I don't know because it's a little it's weird, right? It's very intimate. You sit down and you have to like be really intense and pay very close attention to the game and give honest feedback and stuff like that. And it's something not something that's exactly comfortable if you don't really know a person well. But I have helped. I'm putting the lotion on my skin so I don't get the hose again. My hands are really dry because it's winter. But we have these game days where people bring their games and we play them and give feedback and things like that. I was actually designing a game. I was in the process of designing a game where that was going to be based on John Scalzi's Red Shirts book, and it was a two-pronged kind of game. Part of the game was that all of the players were characters in a badly written science fiction television show trying to stay alive, trying to defeat the narrative. The other team of players were writers trying to get good ratings. We get good ratings by putting in action and influence players. So it was sort of like a team-based cooperative competitive game. And at the Gamma Trade Show this year, there was a guy who was displaying his new game that he was very excited about called Red Shirts. It's basically the same concept, which I think is awesome. I don't believe that there's this idea that there's a monopoly on good ideas, and I'm glad that particular game exists. It's sad because I can't do it myself, but still glad that it exists. Jesse Beach. Friends of mine say tabletop is scripted. I disagree. Tabletop is absolutely not scripted. I will say this again. Tabletop is not scripted. Could you briefly explain the process of making an episode? Sure. So the first thing that happens, we have to figure out what game we're going to play. We have a spreadsheet that has all the games on it that we like, and the games are ranked. And then each game has a different sort of description next to it. Like maybe this game has a strong media tie-in, so maybe we'll get support from whoever owns that media kind of thing. Like if we played like a Walking Dead game, maybe we might get some support from AMC or people who are associated with the show. That's the thing that we think about. Then it'll maybe say like we'll say like, oh well, if we play this game, here's one of my dream guests to come and be on the show and play with us. So we do that. Then I rank the games how like in order, sort of like what I like and how I like them, and what I think is going to work on the show. Like I said at the top of the hour, there's a lot same time, we're putting together a group of players. So we're asking people if they'll come and play on the show with us. Felicia's asking people she knows. I'm asking people I know. Adam is asking people he knows. Sherry's asking people she knows. Everyone who works on the show is going out to people and saying, hey, we're doing this show. Here's what it's about. Here's the pitch. Would you like to play on the show with us? And I'd say probably 40% of the people say yes, which is awesome because people were really taking a chance on us last year. I had some friends who, it's no secret that I have friends that are very, very famous, and some of them said yes, absolutely, and some of them said, well, I don't know enough about it. Let's wait and see what happens. So if we get a second season, we're going to get some really awesome people on the show. People that you're going to be super excited to see them play the games. Great. And then we get that game out to the players, and we have a rehearsal. So we shoot 2 episodes a day. We shoot one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We shoot in a loft in downtown Los Angeles. Before production starts, we load in, we set up the set, we put up the cameras, we have a control room, we get the table, everything's all set up, and then we have a few days of pre-production where we sit down at the table and we simulate a playthrough of every game that we play so that the camera crew kind of knows where action's going to be as the game goes down, where they need to look, what are some things that happen in the game, and things like that. It also lets our director know, so she can get ready to sort of call out cuts and things like that when we're shooting. During production, Boyan and Sherry and I know I'm forgetting someone else sit in the control room and watch. And when an interesting thing happens in the game, they make a note about it. And it can be a funny thing, it can be an impromptu die roll, it can be something that's sort of conflict between players or something like that. And that stuff gets written down. At roughly halfway through as we're playing, we stop because we have to change the memory cards in the cameras. And when that's happening, half of the players, so 2 of the players go with one producer and a camera, and they do those little interview things. Those are called OTF, which means on the fly interviews, where they ask them questions about what's going on in the first half of the show. And then the other half go with director Jen and do the same thing. Then we start up again, we play all the way through, and then we do the same thing. We ask them, do the off-camera question things. And that's I despise reality television, but that's a trick from reality television. Now, reality television is completely scripted, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. But it's still a very good storytelling device. I think it's called a confessional or something like that. And that's where we're sort of editing the show in our head as we go along, and we know like when Felicia was going tentacle, 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 I was like, you're going to do that in the OTF because that's hilarious and that's going to be a meme. When Allison was doing Dead Eyes, I was like, that's going to be a meme. So those sorts of things come up, and then we do interviews after the episode is done. We do the thing at the winner's wall, we do the thing at the loser's couch, and then we're out. I'd say that each episode probably takes roughly 5 hours or so to film, and then we put the whole thing together and it's all done. But nothing's really. The only thing that's scripted, as in written down in advance, are my intros at the beginning of the show where I'm talking to the camera, because I'm working without a teleprompter and I have to know all that stuff, which is why there's all those hilarious gag reels of me saying the F word walking off camera. Not what I was going to say. But I hope that answers your question. It's an incredibly complicated thing to do, and it's one of the reasons that we don't go and try to do it live. I toyed with the idea of doing the show live, at a convention or something like that, or at a game shop or something. I thought it might be really fun, but I think it just doesn't work. And the incredible work our editors do just doesn't happen in the show. It's switched on. Let's see here. We have time for one last question, and while that question is coming up, I want to tell you that there's a new show coming up on the Geek and Sundry channel. It is called On the Table, and it is an in-depth gaming review show. I've watched a little bit of it already, and the first episode that I saw focused it really intensely on miniatures gaming, in the Warhammer universe, which is one of the things that I absolutely love that show is on, and that'll be starting very soon. I don't know if it starts next week or I'm getting notes from the producer, but I can't get them back for it. See, I tell you, you don't want to see this stuff live. It's not good. All right, so it's been on for a bit. Okay, good. So I'm the asshole. All right. This is our final question. It is from the Twitter from Ed Henry. Ed says, I loved the episode on Fiasco. Thank you. It's my favorite episode of the entire season. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about writing your module for that. Okay. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your positive comments about Fiasco. It's my absolute favorite, and I think it illustrates what happens when you get creative people together playing a storytelling game. Fiasco is incredibly useful for writers and actors because you're forced to kind of get to the heart of a scene. And John Rogers and I are very good friends, and we were having lunch just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said, there are times where I'm working on a script, and I just want to put these characters in a Fiasco playset to see what they would do, because it'll help me kind of figure things out for them, which I think is a tremendous praise of Fiasco and the storytelling that goes into it. Fiasco sort of lives in its playsets, right? Fiasco is sort of like a set of core rules, and then there are different playsets that you take those rules into, and that lets you tell a story. You can have a Fiasco. You can have a Fiasco on a moon base if you wanted to, but you can take them in places like suburbia or 1940s Los Angeles, or there's a great one called Dallas 1963, which is about Kennedy assassination, and they're really great opportunities for you and your friends to let things get colossally effed up. They're really great. So each Fiasco playset has a certain number of elements in it, right? There's objects and needs and locations and characters and things like that. And to write one, you just sit down and you make lists of those things. You want to leave them open to interpretation. I think an envelope, how would I describe it? An envelope you wish you had it opened is way better for a player than a Dear John letter, right? Because a Dear John letter is a very specific thing, but an envelope you wish you had it open could have anything in it, and it lets players kind of like build their imagination. So I went to my friend Will Heinmarch, who is a phenomenal writer, game designer, just a brilliant person and an amazing human being. And I asked him if he would help, if we could write it together, because he's a brilliant writer, and he agreed, and we got to work on it. And then Will talked to Jason Morningstar, who is the creator of Fiasco and half of Bully Public Games, the publisher. And Jason said, I'll take a pass at it. And Jason did some work on it, and it all came together as a collaboration. And I was really excited at the prospect of our Fiasco being like just releasing that playset and letting people play it. Will did all the graphics and the artwork for it, and I thought it was cool that we could let people download those things and kind of do what they want with them. And then we put in the presets the characters that Alice and Bonnie Rogers and I sort of created. It was not an especially complicated writing experience. Will and I just sort of bounced things back and forth together. We've worked together before, and I just made a huge list, and he made a huge list, and then we sort of looked at it together. And I think it's really important when you're doing any collaborative project, you just have to be willing to go, this thing that I thought was awesome, turns out it's not, but that thing that you think is like meh is really, really great. And that lets you sort of pull together all of the things that you really like. So it was a great experience. If you want to write your own Fiasco playsets, the Fiasco Companion, to which I contributed, has a lot of really good information in it on how you can build a playset, and just really good, useful for writing in general. I also want to mention another book that is great for game designers and for storytellers, called Hamlet's Hit Points by Robin Laws. It sort of takes the concepts behind the hero's journey that some of you may know from Joseph Campbell's mythology or Christopher Vogler's Myth in the Movies book that is all about building story arcs for television movies, and it applies it to game design, especially for RPGs. It kind of lets you test your characters and build these really complicated, wonderful stories. I highly recommend it. It's amazing. And whether you write games or not, if you're a writer or a creative person in any capacity, it is extremely useful and fun. So it looks like we're out of time, and I just want to say thank you very much for spending an hour with me tonight. This is something I'm really glad that I did. I really enjoyed it, and now I'm going to go have dinner with my wife and try to talk my dogs out of sitting at the side of the table while we eat. So just a couple reminders real quick before I go. Tabletop returns January 3rd. We are playing a game called Alhambra. And I know that everybody loves Dodger League, so do I, and that's the episode that Dodger plays on. So it's a whole lot of fun. I desperately want to keep doing the show. I really want to have a season 2, and you can really help us by liking the episodes, subscribing to the channel, commenting on the channel, and telling people about it. If you have a tabletop experience, if you play a game that we've played, or even a game that we haven't played, take some pictures of it. If you have a story that you want to share with us, take that story and submit it to sceneontabletop.tumblr.com or email it to tabletop@willwheaton.net, and we'll get it up there and share your experiences with the world, because more gamers is always a good thing. Thanks a lot. This was really a good time for me. I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. I'll see you on the internet, and until next time, don't be a dick and play more games.